What's up, Jim?
How's it going, buddy?
Good, you?
I'm hanging in here, just stepping
Yeah.
into the shop for the first time today, so it's nice to kick it off this way.
Nice.
Yeah, we're a little late this week and a little late today. Typically, we're like Monday at 10:30 my time, so 7:30 your time. We're recording Wednesday, September 6th at noon my time, so 9 a.m. your time, but better late than never, I guess.
Yeah, especially we're not really doing any editing or anything on it, so it's easy. After this, just export it and upload it, and hopefully
Life is good.
Somebody's listening. Yeah. So,
but yeah,
how's your
thank
week
you.
been?
You mentioned a metric with me, just to touch base with the people. We appreciate you guys that are listening. Apparently, we have had 500 unique downloads, which is a pretty cool metric through 5 episodes with no advertising and very little marketing and just kind of some organic sharing. And so that's exciting. That was when you shared that with me. I was very happy to hear that. So
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, I got a message from Spotify saying that we just had we hit 500 listens. So it's So it's
500
cool.
just on Spotify. So that doesn't include YouTube or Apple Podcasts or any of the other places.
Yeah, I think the Spotify one covers Apple Podcasts, Google, all that, because it's all the RSS feed is all shared through Spotify, but it doesn't include any of the YouTube stuff.
Cool.
Which is cool. So either way, it's cool. It's exciting.
Sweet, man. Well, it's Wednesday. We are, you're departing on Saturday, the 16th. I think I'm leaving Friday, the 15th for Makers Syndicate show in Indianapolis. So we are officially counting down our last 10 days to pull together our projects to bring with us to the show. How are you making out this week?
I'm making progress. I'm obviously stressed, but not so much on finishing all the machining, but making sure I have enough time to do all the fitting and whatever weird stuff might pop up, once everything actually snaps together. So made a lot of progress this week. This weekend I did a bunch of slides, so I worked on that for a couple of days. Delivered all those yesterday, and have just been running lock frames. So I finished all of the slab frames inside and out on 15 of these. And I haven't posted anywhere or mentioned. These might be kind of far to reach. I'm also doing some frames out of Ultim, which I don't know for sure if it's going to actually work. They're good, but they flex, so we'll see how it goes. But I made 3 of those. So I'm still just trying to bang through the rest of the lock frames. I've got 2 more tie and then the 3 Ultim ones, and then all the frame stuff's done. So I proved out all of the internal geometry on the lock frame with the inset lock bar. So I got this all snapped in. That dovetail that we talked about last week actually worked out really well. Even without the pivot through the back hole, the lock bar is in there solid. So stoked on that. Just trying to plug, just keep making progress. So,
I think that it makes sense that you would start with the lock side because the show side is just what it is, the show side. So as long as it exists, you don't have too much to worry about. I think with regard to the Ultim, as long as it's flat, your blades are flat, and your backspacers are sized correctly, flex really doesn't matter, because it's going to be supported at 2 ends, and it's not like you're going to be gripping it in the center and pinching it. The only thing you would maybe be concerned about is the lock bar nested in there. But even if you just did an Ultim show side with a titanium lock side, I think that they would still be very cool.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out. I think some mix and match stuff is going to be pretty cool too. I think with the dovetail and then with that the pivot running through the whole assembly in the back, and then having essentially kind of a quote unquote full length backspacer, there's no way to really squeeze it. So everything is really completely sandwiched all the way. I got to get a better camera for sure, but this is coming out really cool. I'm stoked on it. So I posted some pictures of some stuff in my stories, a little bit on Facebook in the Facebook group. So try and post some more stuff today. I'm going to probably have all of these frames done. Once we jump off this, I'm going to have all the lock stuff, internal stuff done probably about another 5 hours. It's a long cycle time. It's like 5 hours. It's like an hour and 7 minutes for the internal side of the lock frame. So there's a lot of little details, a little dovetail, and a lot of little roughing with a 1/8 inch and 16th. So
you got to take the time to do it. at the end of the day, whether the cycle time is an hour and 7 or 50 minutes,
whatever,
it's negligible compared to just
overall,
getting the assemblies done in general. But like I did see you posted, it was one of your questions, and somebody asked you something about getting a second machine, and you had said you wish that you would have just gotten a Speedio from the start, because if you had, all of these would be done by now.
Yeah, well, I mean, doing apps and stuff at Yamazen, whenever we would do any time studies on stuff, people were typically coming from Haas's, basically saying, hey, this thing's too slow. We need to make parts faster. What can we do? So we would have them send over their program. I would strip out any Haas specific codes, like G187 and things like that. But overall, most of the code was the same. And then we would just run it on one of the machines in the showroom. And almost on average, it was about 35 to 40% faster with no other changes to the program as far as speeds, feeds, anything.
Oh, you would just run it dry, like just run it dry cycle, cutting nothing just to see how long it took with tool changes and stuff like that.
Yep. But yeah, with tool changes, I mean, we'd kind of simulate, all right, this thing's going to come, the spindle's coming down close to the vise. We'd put in some just rough offsets and stuff, but not actually cutting anything, but yeah, running the whole program all the way through and then just showing them the cycle time. And most of the time they wouldn't believe us. So, all right, well, here's a video. Yeah, you sped that video up. Sorry, dude.
Nope. Watch the timestamp. There's no speeding up here.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, these would probably be 35, 40% easily faster. Probably more than that. I would say maybe at least 50% because I've got to run the machine. Like I was saying last week at like 25% rapid because it was shutting off. I think I just need to modify my post a little bit to where it turns the spindle on and then maybe like a 2-second dwell to let it get up to RPM and then move the XYZ. Because when it's trying to do XYZ and spindle high RPM stuff at a high rapid, that's when I get the low voltage alarms and then it shuts off.
Gotcha.
So I need to just mess with the post a little bit and fix that, and then I can just run this thing at 100% rapid, which is still already pretty slow, but better than running at 25%.
I very rarely run it at 100% rapid. I probably could start, but actually a lot of the time, like case in point 2 days ago when I crashed the BF2, being at 50% rapid probably saved me in some capacity. You know what I mean? That's what I'm always thinking about is like, one, what kind of additional wear and tear are you putting on the ball screws when you're using 100% rapid at all times? And two, if you have a catastrophic crash and it runs its spindle into something at twice the feed rate or twice the speed, like, is it really worth like the time savings for the cycle? You know, nothing that I do is so pressing that like I can't afford the 50% rapid, I don't think. But I also have not really run side-by-side comparisons of cycle time for time study to see how much I would save with a 100% versus 50% rapid. But I got to imagine that even on a 1 hour cycle, it can't be more than a few minutes, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I've done a few on here just to run at 100% and then at 50% and like a 10-minute cycle, it would end up being like close to 30 seconds. So,
okay. So yeah, you're looking
like an
at
hour,
2 minutes over an hour, 3 minutes over an hour.
But that depends on how many tool changes and how much table space you're using and all that other stuff. So
a lot of factors,
but I think between 50 and 100 is pretty negligible, but running shit at 25% sucks. It's definitely slow,
sucks.
Especially since this thing's already slow in general. You crashed in a rapid?
Yeah, it was lifting. It was switching between sequences. So I had an 1/8 inch bullnose that was finishing the pocket walls of the internal op one of the transient frames. And I added, that I had been running that for that same program for a while. I added an additional sequence with that tool. And in Creo, I have all of my parameters for different cutting sequences, like saved per tool. Because I mean, obviously, like whatever Fusion calls it, but there's probably 5 main sequences, like a bottom cutting, like Z level roughing, profiling, Z level profiling, 2D contour, a 2D adaptive, and then like I don't know, call it 5 sequences. So I have like those saved for each tool. So it'd be like 1/8 inch bull, volume rough, 1/8 inch bull, volume profile only, blah blah blah. So I have all those saved with all my parameters, and they all have like modal offsets saved. So like it described G59 or G58 or G54. Well, I also have all of my old hard milling parameters saved from my old job. And those are like on the screen that populates when I first pull up, like, open from file when I'm trying to populate parameters. And then I have to double click on, my titanium folder and then grab my parameters from there. Well, I wasn't thinking when I added in this little sequence and I just selected the hard milling version of that cutting tool's parameters. And on the Makinos, I didn't describe a modal offset. I did that in the control. So it just has nothing. So the Haas defaults to G54. So it popped up from bottom cutting and then went over to the G54 location, which really the only thing that changed was the Z depth. And it tried to plunge down to 3 inches lower. And I thought that it just ran the flange of the tool holder into the top of the part. Because, the part was missing. There was no visible damage to the top of the vise. And I was like, oh, it just hit the part and kicked the part out. And, like, life is good. And I, like, retouched off that tool to make sure that, like, my Z, like, my spindle didn't push up at all. Like, there was no Z difference. And I actually just loaded that part back in and just ran it. I'm like, all right, well, the Z was, like, 0.3 off. It was fine. I'm like, okay, well, it must have just had, like, a pressure limit, Z spindle pressure limit or something, and it just alarmed out. Well, no, it actually hit it with the nose of my tool holder, but just at the edge of the vise that it pushed my entire subplate and 2 vices over a 1/2 inch.
Oh,
but
shit.
I just like hit it, like it didn't hit the face of the tool holder to damage it, which obviously would have stopped it. It like had like a glancing blow that just like grazed the vise enough to push it over. And so then when I ran that part, I came over and looked at it, and the part was scrap. And I'm like, holy fuck, why are there extra holes? Like, what happened? And then I brought my Pro out, just went to G59, G0, X0, Y0, or whatever, and like came down, and I was like, oh shit, I'm a 1/2 inch away from my bore. So I had to strip everything off the table and like stone everything and like realign the subplate and get everything back on and dialed. But yeah, it was, obviously if it would have been 100% rapid, I don't know if it wouldn't have gotten up to 100% rapid because obviously it was only moving over 2 inches and going down 3 inches, but I certainly think it would have smacked it a lot. Like I actually physically heard the spindle, you know what I mean, where it like gets bound up and stopped itself. And it wasn't like the thunk of the crash just because it was the glancing blow. It was like the spindle flange bottoming out on the part that I actually heard. But I had like my noise canceling with just these in, and it still scared the shit out of me, Yeah, it was, everybody knows that sound and that feeling of just like, oh no, what just happened, And
yeah, any sound in there, when you know every little sound in the shop, it doesn't matter what tool it is or what, you know exactly what those sounds are. And my wife and I have been doing like aggressive cleaning in the garage and just throwing shit out and going through every single drawer and stuff. And I was out here running a new program yesterday on the lock frames. I reposted, and I'm out here running stuff, and she slammed one of the drawers. Not like slammed it, but it's it's on bearings, and the drawer shut.
Don't do that.
What was that? Yeah, don't do that. It was just a drawer, luckily. So that was on your VF2?
Yeah.
Do you ever run safe mode? You have safe mode on that?
I don't know. What's that?
So before you, I think it's standard on next gen controls. I'm not sure. It was kind of a newer feature. It may have been a pay option on it, but before you press cycle start, when you're in memory mode, just press F3, and then it'll pop up safe mode on there. It slows down your rapids, but the machine will detect any type of collision like that, especially in Z. So if you're coming down on Z and you're rapiding into something, but the motors or the encoders detect that collision before it reaches the endpoint of that travel, it'll stop everything. So you could essentially.
So then you just do that for a first run, just stop it,
Yep.
Okay.
And then just turn F3, press F3 again, and it'll turn safe mode off. Damn, then your rapids will crank up. So,
dude,
yeah,
I'm just running by the seat of my pants, man. Even like when I was running the Makinos for whatever 10 years, I didn't have graphics. Like I didn't have anything like that. So it was every program that I posted and ran was just like a spray and pray. So I've like gotten used to that feeling, as where like when I first got the Super Mini Mill, like I was using Simco on I was posting every sequence into Simco and like watching it. And like, I very quickly got out of the habit of doing that just because it takes too long. But like, I probably should, just when you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars tied up in these machines, and like the last thing you want to do is have an error in judgment or like that. I was trying to get something off the ground in the super mini mill, trying to make adjustments to that in the VF2. And everybody knows when you're like trying to have your head into like too many things at once, that's when you make mistakes. Like usually I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing. Like, okay, this machine can sit until I'm 100% confident that this one's running. And then when this one's running smoothly, a half an hour later, I'll come get this one running. But because we're in such crunch time and I'm trying to do both things at like the same pace, like, I'll make a little adjustment here and like, it was one misclick, and all of a sudden could have a catastrophic problem. But yeah, safe mode. Okay. I'll give that a shot.
Check and see. Yeah, just press F3 and you'll see if it pops up or not. Yeah, I crashed one of the UMC 500s with pallet pool at the last shop. And I was using Mastercam and making 2 parts and programmed one, and then I just patterned to the other one. So, obvious reasons why you'd want to pattern something. And Mastercam defaulted to just output the pattern part as G54 rather than keeping whatever workout set you were using. And G54 was center of the C-axis and at the faceplate of the ZPS, on the 0 point on there. So it just came up to the clearance point, and instead of going over to the center of that next part, it just tried to go through the vise, all the way down. And
those are the worst.
Yeah, it welded the collet nut shut and everything. And
I mean,
nothing happened.
I'd probably rather have a straight Z, like a straight down Z movement, than like a lateral crash where it goes to a depth and like rips the tool holder out of the spindle and feel like you knock the spindle out of square and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think most machines are pretty resilient to Z-axis crashes. Speedios and stuff too. I mean, those things full rapid straight down in Z, and they're usually just fine. So I think most of them are smart enough now to just stop and not self-destruct too bad. So
yeah, I always get people sending me like, "Oh, you're a machinist. Like, let me send you this compilation of like machine crashes and failures on Instagram." And I'm just like, I'm not even going to open that. That is like what my nightmares are made of. And like, I don't think that that's funny. And I feel really bad for those fucking people. Like, don't send me that shit.
Yeah. The worst recurring dream I have is being able to not stop the machine. Like the Z's just coming down, you stop and it just keeps going. You feed hold, you stop, whatever. And it's just slowly coming down.
You're like, slamming everything and nothing's working.
Yeah. And it just keeps going. And, yeah, those are my nightmares. Like I have that dream like recurring, which is wild. So yeah, this
it's
thing
like Austin Powers with the steamroller guy, like no, and like the guy's just driving really slowly with the fucking steamroller.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what happened when this thing shut off the first time, when the power shut off, and it kills the control. But I went in the back, I shut everything off. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna let this thing just sit for a minute and then turn it all back on. And I turn it back on, and the lights turn on, and the spindle's turning. What the fuck's going on? Like this thing's going to start, moving around, but it was just because there was no brake, just was still winding down.
Yeah.
And,
I actually had that happen last night. I had for the first time since I got this phase converter, I had a low voltage alarm and both machines shut off. Thankfully, the VF2 actually had the probe in the spindle, which never like that. But the Super Mini Mill was actually in between cuts, and so the tool was like 2 inches in the air. You know how it is. It always sinks in Z and fucking fucks the part up if it shuts off mid-cycle. But yeah, it was just because it was so hot here yesterday, I'm just assuming, with the air conditioning running full fucking blast and, both machines in the cut and like the house air conditioning running, and like I just got a quick little smidgen and both machines shut down, which sucks, but
yeah, I'm hoping that's all that happened on this too, because I haven't tried to slow anything down as far as RPM goes on these, and I've run a bunch of slides which run at like 7,500 RPM on some of the small tools, with no issue of low voltage. So it may have just passed, when it was like 95 pretty much every day for a couple weeks here. So it's much cooler now, starting to kind of rain a little bit and cool off, but it's still kind of nasty.
Nice, man.
So cool. So what are you up to today?
Well, I just
you made a lot of progress past couple days, right?
Well, 2 days ago was zero negative progress. Crashed the machine, scrapped 3 sets of frames, which was like a hairy thing. I scrapped the first set of frames. It was the job that I was trying to run in the VF2. Then I crashed it, and then I picked everything back up and I put a part back into my soft jaw. Actually, I put a part in there. I cut it, and it was wonky. I don't know what it was, but I'd already kind of decided while that was mid-cycle, okay, I'm actually going to move this job back over to the super mini mill because the VF2, whether it's the HSM or whatever, there are certain 3D things that it just cuts better. And because everything that I was doing in there was 2D, I was like, I'll just move that job over to the super mini mill, and I'm going to set up some 3D stuff over in the VF2. So I moved that job over here after I hadn't made any good parts. And I replaced a few tools over here, just, stuff that was probably used because I had been hard milling blades in this machine. And I was like, I'm just going to replace some stuff. So I cut a set of frames, and the stop pins and the pivots were oversized by like 2 thousandths, like sloppy as hell. I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. But I was like looking at my posted program, and I had made some changes to it, and it was not, I was using cutter comp for those, obviously, and it was not, there was no G41 in any of the program for any of those. And it's like, okay, what's going on here? Somehow I had imported some parameters where the lead-in was way too big for the profiling that I was doing. And so there was no way to engage cutter comps. I had like a 10 thousandths tangent move, a 10 thousandths, like to allow the cutter comp to turn on, and then a 10 thousandths lead-in. And for some reason, it had like a 50 thousandths lead-in, so it just ignored the lead-in, and there was no move to be able to engage cutter comp. I'm like, okay, well, I made the changes to the program, like reposted it out, good to go. Okay, ran the part. Next one was fucking 2 thousandths oversized. I'm like, what the hell? Like, code's good. Check my. I actually had cutter comp was I had made it plus. Like it was plus 6 or 7 tenths per side. So then I get my indicator out and I check that tool, and the fucking tool is running out 1.5 thou. So I'm like, then I'm remembering I had put those HTC carbide end mill store 330 seconds in for, I was blanking out like carbon fiber and shit, something that I didn't care about. It's using a shitty tool that's going to get dull. Well, those ones run out like a son of a bitch for some reason. Like every one that I have, I use Lakeshore for everything. So I replaced that with a Lakeshore tool, which they're always perfect. But do you think that I checked the run out on the Lakeshore tool? No. Put it in, cut another set of frames. Somehow the one Lakeshore tool that I grabbed out of the drawer was running out 7 tenths on one flute. And so I still overcut the fucking stop pin. So like I tap that tool in so that it's running within a couple of tenths, and then I bump it up 1.5 thou on the wear offset, and I just chase it back in until it's cutting. But it was just like, it was laborious. I fucking crashed the machine on this job, switch it over to here, scrap 3 sets of frames, and it was just one of those days where I was like, I can't win today. I just can't. So anyways, fast forward to, oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So fast forward to yesterday, and I'm entering the day like namaste, woosah. I'm like, deep breaths. And I actually ended up having like the most kick-ass day that I've had in quite a while. I worked like 14 hours. I got 10 blades hard milled finished. I got 9 or 10 sets of frames complete on Op1, which is a lot of dialing in of some stuff, but that got running smoothly. I ran all the pocket clips, all the back spacers, and all the pivot collars for all of the Makers Syndicate show builds. So I actually ended the day yesterday with nothing to do for these Makers Syndicate builds because I was waiting for my subliner inserts to come in the mail, which should be here any minute from UPS. So I like ended the day and I was like, man, I just like stayed. It was, those days where you're just like, you're motivated, where you're like, job's done, next job in. Job's done, next job's in. Like, I'm not stopping to piss. I'm not stopping to answer phone calls or text messages. I'm just like, jaws in, jaws out, probe, cycle start, check, blah, 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 blah. And like the day ended and I was just like, holy shit, that was a good day at work. Like that's a day where you earned your money, And so, yeah, I entered today. I actually ended up, making the decision this morning to run down and do some deer stuff and property management stuff with a buddy of mine. Cause I was like, well, UPS isn't going to get there till like 11. I've been running. I mean, I know you've been running hard, but I mean, I've been working 14, 15 hours a day for like the last 2 weeks straight. My family went out of town this last weekend and I stayed home, working my nuts off. And I just kind of decided this morning on a 90-degree day that I needed to go sweat my ass off in the woods for a couple hours. So yeah, I mean, I'm on schedule. I have my buddy Logan coming into town on Friday. He works for Coal Iron. He's a manufacturing engineer / design engineer for Coal Iron Works in Indianapolis. And he's who I went to forge that stainless Damascus with in May. And he's actually going to come to town because he has access to like a mid-90s VF0 at Coal, where he does like some prototyping stuff for like the stuff that he's designing, the projects that he's working on, but they allow him after hours to kind of make whatever he wants in there. And I mean, it's pretty clapped out, but like as a glorified water jet that's like doing 2D stuff and poking holes and cutting counterbores and like cutting chamfers, works perfectly fine. So kind of our agreement was, if I go to Indiana to work with him for a few days, that sometime between then and this show, that he would pop to Erie for a few days. We would go over machining concepts, fixturing concepts, speeds and feeds, order of operations, my approach to like cutting parts, and in the meantime, also maybe potentially do some Mac style manufacturing on one of his folder models, because he's been making fixed blades like for about as long as I have, like I think 8 years or something. That's kind of, we met each other the first year I was making knives, and he's a young kid. I think he's only 26, 27, but super motivated, and makes some really cool fixed blades, but wants to break into the folder market. And so we're going to kind of go over some of his models and make some tweaks and maybe make some parts. But I had told him that I had wanted to get to the point where all of my knives parts were completely manufactured. They were all assembled, and then I could go into 2.5 days with him or 2 days with him, and then I could have 5 days to finish my own knives. So that was kind of my goal, was to enter our time Friday being there. So looking at it, if those subliner inserts arrive today and I work on them today and tomorrow morning, then I should have 24 hours to kind of assemble all of my stuff and probably even get started on locks and detents before he arrives. So my schedule is, I'm on schedule and on track for what I was hoping for. I wouldn't have guessed that a couple of days ago that I would be there, but I am somehow.
Nice. Yeah, you killed it yesterday for sure.
Yeah, it's funny how just like one day of like success can like really push you forward, like can change that feeling of like dread and doubt into like motivation, to where, if I have a bad day tomorrow, I can reflect on yesterday was a really good day, and I can have another really good day just like that, even if that day is tomorrow, so really pretty uplifting.
Nice. Yeah. There's some days where I come out and I just, one thing after the next is a problem. And I just, I'm out. I got to take a break from this because I'm just going to keep getting worse, snowballing. But yeah, those days where it's good, where you just don't even want to eat. And it's like, all right, cool. I'm going to set up this next job, probe it. Then I'm going to go inside, eat some food, come back out. But then you're ready to go. And it's like, I might as well post and run. And then 4 hours later, it's like, I'm still out here doing something. Yeah. Yeah. I've been trying to work.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get up like around 6 and then, get some stuff started, then get ready, take Hudson to school, and then just keep going. So I'm like officially out here kind of dressed and ready to do whatever at like 7:30. Nice. And then I've been out here till like 10:30 to 12:30 most nights. So
it's important. Like, it's good that your wife gets it. Like, my wife and I have kind of been like bickering a little bit, just because like when like she's being super supportive and letting me do my thing and handling all of the kids stuff, homework after school, getting them to sports, making them dinner, getting them into bed. Like, she's been handling it all, but I'm not really seeing or interacting with her much. And I'm finding myself like when I go inside at night, like I'm kind of snippy and irritable, and like mentally have like some expectations of like how she's greeting me or like how she's engaging. And then like forgetting that like she just dealt with the kids like all afternoon and night. Like the last thing she wants to do is like have like a meaningful conversation with me. Like she doesn't give a shit. Like her effort towards what I'm doing is giving me the space to do it, not to like engage about it when I come inside, And
it's the same.
So I'm trying to work around that, which is like being more appreciative of the space that she's giving me, understanding that like my mental well-being is far more impacted by how successful I am at work than like how much time I'm not spending with them right now. She really reads the room well. Like she knows that in me, as where, I don't do that nearly as well as she does, unfortunately.
Yeah. I got to work on a lot of that stuff.
But I think as long as you're aware of it, you know what I mean? And like, I always say this to my kids, like when we're like trying to eliminate a bad habit. It's not about eliminating the bad habit. It's about becoming aware that it's happening and then progressively becoming aware faster that it's happening. So like if it's something new and I fucking go off the handle and 5 minutes later I realized I made a mistake, and then I can like make an adjustment to that. And the next time it happens, I can become aware that it happened 2 minutes after it happened. Then it's a minute after it happened. And before you know it, like 5 seconds before you do it, you catch it and you stop yourself from doing it. You know, it's not about making that immediate change. It's just about forcing yourself to be accountable for it and not like dying on the hill that you're right or what you did is okay or justified, which is difficult, right? Like it's difficult to like look back and say, you know what, I was a fucking dick, or that was a really bad choice on my part. And then to like keep that in the forefront of your brain without letting it like dominate your thoughts, but just to let it become more impactful on like how you react to things situationally. But it isn't easy.
No, yeah, it's a constant struggle. At least for me, I think I'm getting a little bit better about being patient with stuff like that, but definitely know the feeling. So
I'm gonna kill. Sorry, my wife is just added like 1,000 like calendar events, and my watch is just ding, 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 like literally just dinged 50 times in a row, and I'm trying to swipe up to silence it, but
I can
the
hear
notifications are coming in so fast as I'm trying to like silence it that I can't. I'll get like I want to take this watch off and chuck it against the wall. Anyways, but
Cool.
yeah, so she's been cool. I'm glad that Brittany's been cool, and that's awesome that your days are starting early. Mine are still starting a little late. Like my routine's kind of found a home, and like I get up at 6 o'clock. I get my son up at 6 o'clock. I kind of like mill around for like a half an hour. Like I'm just like waking up kind of slowly, you know, maybe take my morning constitutional, whatever like the case may be. And then I come out here and I get the machines turned on, get the air compressor turned on. But my wife kind of was like, hey, if you can come in around 8:10, like it's pretty helpful to me if between 8:10 and 8:30 you can help get the kids ready so that when she leaves at 8:30 to take the baby to preschool, but the kids don't get on the bus till 8:45, that like they're for sure like shoes are on, they have their backpacks, lunches are packed, and like that way they're not getting on the bus or missing the bus. So I kind of have been interrupted by that, but I've kind of been liking that. I like being a part of that routine. So then I come back out after the kids get on the bus at 8:45, having maybe gotten a cycle running or two. I like to try and get the machines running if I had something running the night before through that time that I'm inside with them. And then keep the machines running. I get on the treadmill. I do my stretching, my back mobility, my hip mobility stuff. And then typically after that, you know, it takes about 40-45 minutes. I try and keep the machines running through that. Then my day like actually really starts. But if I didn't have anything running from the night before, I find myself not really starting my day till after my exercise is finished, which is not what I really want to have happening. But I know that if I prioritize work ahead of like those things, that I will forego doing those things, because I will always try. I'll end up working through it, and then before you know it, it's 11, and you're not getting that routine. So like on days when the night's work before allows me to get the machines going, I prioritize that. But otherwise, I'm trying to prioritize initial family contact and exercise to set the tone for the day. You know, that's kind of like where I'm finding my grounding. And so on nights when I'm missing them after school or I'm working late and I look back and I'm like justifying that I like didn't exercise or whatever, like that impacts me a lot more than like if I just take the time and start a little bit later.
Yeah, it's good being able to do that. I try and kind of bond with Hudson a bit more too. I mean, we hang out all the time, but just walking him to and from school and picking him up and stuff, like it's a nice, it's only 10 minutes there and back or each way, but it's nice. It's time just us, and we can talk about whatever and talk about school and see how he's feeling and everything. And it's a nice kind of like intimate, just one-on-one time with him. And my wife usually gets the kids ready in the morning and stuff while I'm getting ready for the day. But by the time I'm up and taking him to school, I'm already showered and dressed and literally ready to go.
Sure.
So I usually try and start early, but today she kind of got on me a little bit, and she's like, dude, you have no sense of urgency for any of this other stuff. Like, I'm stuck in my routine where it's like, if I don't go through my routine, I feel like it sets the tone for my day and I'm just not where I need to be. But
Sure.
I need to try and get a little bit better about that.
When she's saying your sense of urgency, like with regard to family stuff or with regard to work stuff, or like what is she referring to?
Family stuff primarily. It's always kind of like, if I got to go do something for the shop, or I got to go somewhere, drop off parts, or I got to go do something for hobby stuff, it's like I'm up early, I'm showered, and I'm out the door, and it's all quick, But if we're getting ready to get up in the morning and go to school and do stuff, I'm kind of dragging my feet a little bit, even though we're on time and we do all that. But I could do my stuff faster so that I could help her out more. I think that's what the issue is. So I need to work on that.
Honestly, that rings true here. My wife will say that, like, you're always on gym time, if it's important to you, it's number one priority. And like, if it's important for us, like, who knows if it'll ever get done. And so it's hard because it's true. And like, I don't know how to change it. You know what I mean? Like like I tell her, like, it's not personal. Like, it's not like I am like, oh, this is something I want to do, so I'm gangbusters on it. And this is something you want, and fuck you, I'm not doing it. Like, it's never malicious.
No, it's not like that at all. Yeah.
And like, but they take it so personally. And I'm like, I promise you, this is not like me blowing you off. It's just, I feel like that there are, and like this is a bullshit cop out, but I feel like there's something chemically that like I'm not in control of, that like when it's something that is important to me, I prioritize it. And when it's something that's not important to me, like, I don't know, there's less motivational chemicals in my body. They're like pushing me forward to get it done. And like, that's not to say that like I can't rationalize that this is important and I'm going to do it right now. But there are some times where I just don't want to fucking do it. You know what I mean? And it's like I don't know how to, like, I'm not like, it's not in like a rude way. It's just like, I want to say to her, like, you've never been unmotivated in your life. You know what I mean? Like I know that you go through that a lot. You know what I mean? Like cut me some slack here. But then she'll say like, dude, I cut you slack all the time. Let me count the ways. And I'm like, yeah, no, you're right. So
they're right for sure.
They're not wrong. Like there's no justifying out of it. We definitely are passionate people that don't give enough of our passion to our families. But with that said, you are a very like involved and dedicated parent, and I am in some ways envious. Like, I don't know if it's because you have less kids or you have a better parental instinct, but like sometimes I wonder if I had less kids or I had them later in life, like, would I be a more attentive father to them than I have been? I don't know. I'll never know, but I see, guys like you have 1 or 2 or even 3 kids in some regards, depending on the ages, but like they're so invested. And I'm like, I can't be that level of invested in all my kids, because if I was, I would have no time to do anything else just because there's so many of them,
Yeah, it's tough.
And I don't know how Brittany is. Like Brandy will say, we don't care how much time you spend with us. Just like when you're spending time with us, give us your attention. You know what I mean? Like, stay off your phone. Like, I do so much doom scrolling, dude. Like, even she'll say, like, you're in here for an hour last night, but you're just on your fucking phone for an hour. Like, you weren't engaging with us. Like, you were just here, like, doing whatever you're doing. And like, that's been my biggest battle for 10 years, since cell phones and social media have become a thing. And like, you can justify it like, oh, well, I'm on my phone because of the business. And she's like, you got to draw the line somewhere, dude. Like, when you're done for the night, if it's 7 or 8 o'clock, like, do you got to put it on airplane mode? Like, what do you got to do? And so tough. Those are boundaries that we're always exploring.
Yeah, I deleted all that stuff a while ago. I took a break from it and kind of recognized that I was just doom scrolling and doing that shit. And like, be at the kitchen table and we're just both on our phones. Kids are there and nobody's really talking to each other. Or we're sending memes back and forth to each other. And it's like, so I deleted all that stuff for a while and kind of took a break from it. And I think I've gotten a little bit better, but I catch myself. Sometimes I'm just sitting on the couch. I'm like, dude, I should either be on the computer doing some work shit, getting ready for the show, or I should actually still be out in the shop instead of just sitting on my phone playing Call of Duty or something.
Yep.
But it's tough. So trying to be aware of it and spend more
I think
time.
that's all it comes down to, man, is like staying aware, making small changes, and like expecting more of yourself. It might take a long time, but over time, it's like anything else. The habit will develop, and like you look back and be like, man, I can't believe I was that guy a year ago or whatever. The problem is that sometimes the change happens so slow that like your significant other doesn't appreciate the progress. You know what I mean? It slowly just morphs into something else that they're frustrated with because this was rectified, but you replaced it with something else that annoys the shit out of them. You know what I mean?
Everything I do annoys her though. So
yeah, no doubt. No,
it's like seeing a kid every day. You don't really see how fast they grow, you know, and then you don't, somebody else comes in like, holy shit, dude, this kid's huge. It's the same.
100%, man.
Yeah. I
don't know if this is go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I just, you were talking about just the amount of time and stuff and prioritizing family. And it's like, obviously I get stressed about the shop and like productivity and money and all that stuff. But I try and think about just the kids and like the small amount of time that you actually have with those kids when they're kids. And it's like, dude, by the time he's 10, he's going to be doing his own shit. He's going to have his own friends and I'm not going to be his best friend anymore, you know? And it's like right now we'll go to school and he'll like introduce me as like his best friend to his friends and stuff. And it's like,
this is my best friend, Dad.
Yeah. So it's cool, you know, and, he's not embarrassed or anything. It's cool. He's like, hugging a kiss, Dad, you know, and I push him on the wagon and he hops out and do all that. And, so I really try and like prioritize that as much as possible. And like, obviously if there's stuff in the shop that has to get done, it's one thing. And I'll make sure that it gets done. And Brittany's understanding of that. But like last week, we went to Disneyland twice last week. I think it was 2 times in 1 week, whatever. We live so close, but it's like, hey, we're going to Disneyland today after Hudson's off school. All right. You know, and shut everything down. And I'm out of here at 3:00. Thankfully, I, was out here at 6 or 7:30 or whatever. So I still got, a full day in, but yeah, we try and do as much as we can with them because it's so short. It's like, you think about it, it's like, all right, I'm going to bust my ass right now so we don't have to later. But by the time later gets here, it's like the kids are already going to be grown up, so.
Yep. No, for sure, man. It's critical. Like, I think it depends on the kids too. Like Callum's 13 and like, he'll take as much as I give. So every time I walk by him, he's still like, can I have a hug? Like, sure, dude, of course. Like if I'm like, hey, you want to run to Lowe's with me? Yep, let's go. As we're like, my 8-year-old, like, hey, you want to run to Lowe's? And he'll be like, do I have to? So it's like totally kid dependent. I feel like there's a time where they want to be your best friend. Then they go through a couple of years of independence. And then I think as they're coming into themselves hormonally, there's a time when they start to lean on you again, where they're like, don't recognize what's going on in their body, that just something's happening. They don't really know how to handle it. And like, they just are looking for a little bit more time with you because I think it makes them feel stable when everything's changing. And then when they're like 15 and they're chasing chicks and they can drive and whatever, they don't give a shit about you. I feel like there's a sweet spot there where you can like rekindle, if you had a couple of years where there was a little bit of less time spent, you kind of have some time to re-involve them. Like Callum this year, I took him hunting for the first time and he killed a turkey, like that was a new experience for him that like we got to experience together. And like, he's looking forward to like going deer hunting and, our archery opens in like 3 weeks. And so getting an opportunity to do that with me was something he's seen me be passionate about for the last 10 or 12 years, so can find those things as they age to include them, even coming out here. Like he's so technical and like detail oriented and like compulsive and like kind of nerdy where I'm like, I think he would actually like maybe enjoy doing this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Whether it's like programming or design stuff or like understanding the idiosyncrasies of the machine and running cycles, like I could see him getting interested in doing this. So I'm going to offer him that opportunity, and like see what comes of it. I would love it if one of my kids, I want them all to do great things with their lives, but if one of them was truly passionate about this in any capacity, I'd love to be able to share the business with them, to see them motivated and have them help me grow it. I'll never push them to do that, but like if it fell into their lap and it just so happened to work out, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, it's cool. I had that conversation with Hudson a couple of days ago before bedtime. Like always try and prioritize like a couple minutes in the morning, a couple minutes when you pick them up from school, and then a couple minutes before they go to sleep. You say that's like the most critical time in a child's life is like those 9 minutes. But we were talking about that before he went to bed a couple nights ago. I'm like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, you don't have to come out, like, because he comes out in the shop all the time. He's always out here and he's going through stuff and building things and stacking material and everything. And I was asking him like, what do you like doing? What do you want to do? And I already know, but he was like, oh, I want to be a paleontologist, and because he just
Hell
loves
yeah.
bones and building shit and puzzles, and like he'll sit there. He's been doing this for a couple of years. He'll sit and do like a 500-piece puzzle by himself, and he's totally fine. And he's totally fine with it. It's fucking wild. But he'll also go out in the front yard and play soccer with the neighbor kids. So he's like totally social, but he could sit for hours and play on his own. But he's like, yeah, I want to be a paleontologist, but I want to be a surfing paleontologist because I want to find mosasaurus bones, the ones from the water and shit. I'm like, all right,
rad perspective.
Cool. Yeah. So, yeah, it's cool. Grayson just started walking a couple of days ago.
Damn, dude.
He took his first steps.
How old is he? 2?
He's almost 2. Yeah, November he'll be 2. So he's like 21.
Yeah, I knew he was coming up on it. That's awesome, dude. Like,
yeah, he's been kind of a late bloomer with a lot of that stuff.
I was gonna say that's a little late, but issues are not like, I've had a couple kids that waited until they were damn near 2 to walk. Some were walking at 13 months. It just depends on the kid.
Yeah, totally. We're not worried about it. I mean, he had a lot of issues. He was in the NICU for a while, and he had a G-tube for a long time, and all that shit's out though, and he's eating and he's doing really well. So
he's a total boss.
Yeah, he's killing it now. So
it's awesome, cool. It's so exciting. Well, I'm glad the family's doing good.
Come in. Yeah, that's good. So
cool. I guess we spent half this podcast episode talking about intangibles, family balance, nothing hardly about machining. Like, I think it's just us needing to vent because we're just getting burnt out on this show prep, and it's like, I'm thinking about knives all day, and then we have to record a podcast. We're thinking about knives, and I'm like, I need a little bit of something else in my life. But so what's your plan for the rest of the? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Just before we jump off to something else, I do talk to a lot of guys that listen, and they're like, "This is a very like relatable podcast because this dude's just like us. They're sitting in their garages or in their shops by themselves, and most of them have kids, and we all just deal with the same shit, So it's cool getting feedback from people like, dude, I deal with the same struggles all the time. And it's nice because it's not like, oh yeah, I dealt with struggles on being rejected on that loan for the new machine or whatever and shit. It's like, no, I woke up and my kid puked all over my shit. And it's like, we're all dealing with the same stuff. So it's cool.
Yeah. It's, sometimes it's hard if you feel like you're walking the road alone and you don't realize like how many people are just walking the same path, and
there's
like,
so many of us. Yeah.
It's okay. Like, it's a different struggles, depending on your lifestyle, but like nobody's shit's perfect. And like,
no.
This is very trite. Like, it's a redundant thing to say, but like these social media highlight reels, man, of people just seeing your wins and like not seeing your losses and thinking your life is perfect. And like, I honestly have like made my hay, I think, with relatability to my customers, just because I've always been like very upfront with my struggles, like just with like in my stories or posts or whatever. And, so I kind of try and paint the picture, both sides of the story, just so that these guys are like very aware of like who I am and what I put into what I'm doing. And like, I feel like there's a lot of people that never lift, like, let their customers or people in behind the fourth wall. They're just seeing, finished knives or auction posts, or it's like, man, this guy's killing it, and it's like, I've always found that people appreciate knowing, the man behind the brand, what the day-to-day life is like of the guy that's just like scratching and pawing at trying to find success. And like, I think that the more that we can share that, whether it's through this podcast or through Instagram or whatever, like, I think the better off the strength of our business is, and like the relatability only increases. So
yeah, cool. Yeah, I used to do those meet your maker posts all the time, and not a lot, but I've seen a couple from you. I need to do something like that. I feel like I never really showed my face until like we'd started doing this podcast. Very few times. There's like maybe 2 or 3 stories where like I was on top of the mill talking about bringing this thing in, but other than that, really nothing. I forget if it was Saunders or Grimsmore, one of them, but it was like, yeah, things completely changed just when I turned the camera around. Because it's actually relatable to like an actual person now. So it's pretty cool.
You're doing great too, man.
Sense.
Like you're a natural. You don't really realize it, like the way that you present information, like whether it's from like the technical perspective or like just the bigger oversight. It's not. You're always looking at the big picture. And I think that you have a lot to share. And I've gotten so used to like talking to people this way that like it feels natural to just like have a conversation and share my thoughts. But it's cool to see you kind of coming out of your shell. And like, I think it's only going to help you, because there's 100,000 people that make shit, but like there's only one of you that makes the things that you make, and 50% of what makes what you do unique is who you are. So like you can share your products, but like now don't get me wrong, there are some people who like their brand thrives around ambiguity, you know, and like the allure of like, we don't know the guy making it, we just know that it's getting made, you know, and like there is an aura that illusion or elusiveness is like something that certainly draws like a certain crowd of people in. But like I've always wanted my people to feel like they're buying something from me, not just something for my brand, and knowing that like they're aware of my kids or like my kids' struggles, and like knowing that like what they're putting their money into is like helping me to like raise an American family. You know what I mean? Like I just think that that's a cool relatability. So I think the more you do this, I think the more your brand is going to grow. You're timing it really well because you're introducing a very unique product offering into a space that's pretty stagnant, and also rebranding yourself as being a part of your brand. And I think that rolling out like those two things in parallel is going to like just allow your brand in general to just explode. So I'm very excited to see where this leads you.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. We were kind of talking about that stuff, just like posting and what to post and how to do it and when to do it and all that shit. And it's like, it's hard to kind of navigate that stuff. I know like 2016, 17, that was when my Instagram just blew up. I mean, it's not huge, but I mean, there's like almost 18,000 followers on there, but most of those were from around that time. And then it just sat there since 2017. It hasn't moved literally at all until like the past few days. It bumped up from like 17.6 to 17.7 or whatever. But Instagram makes it very difficult to really see like who's unfollowing and where it's really going. And then obviously any of those third-party apps and shit are always kind of unreliable. So,
and don't go down the rabbit hole, because at the end of the day, who cares?
I try not to. Yeah, I try not to care about that shit. But I do. I mean, I'm like conscious of it, where it's like, all right, is it because there's a bunch of ghost followers, you know, and then the percentages of actual real followers and ghost is off, and that's why there's no traffic? Who knows? I think
my opinion of it is like
stay the course, really.
No, you have to. And like, I feel like social media, like I see people with 3,500 followers that have 1,000 entries into their lotteries. You know, like I think what is most important about these, you know, when your account is a little bit older, like ours, like I started mine in 2016. Yours has been the same one since 2014, probably
11 or so. 11, 12.
You know, 2012, whatever. I feel like that, like your follower number is just like a credibility check for 2 seconds, where like a new person's like, oh, are you on Instagram? And like, yeah, here's my hmc.knives. And they pull it up and they're like, oh, this person's got like 20,000 followers. They must be doing something pretty cool. And then from there, that's the only thing that mattered from them encountering your Instagram. It's like, okay, this person's legit. Now I'm going to be interested in what they're doing because other people are. And it's less about content distribution. Like the strength of that is in your Facebook group or your email list or whatever other method you have for delivering your content. But Instagram is the most relatable one-person credibility. It's like your business card of like, here's my name, it has my location, here's how many people follow me. Okay, this guy's business is legit. I'm now taking interest in it. And beyond that, I don't put any stock in like who gets my shit through Instagram, because it could be 100 people, it could be 3,000 people. I don't know. And I don't like, I'm so over like putting effort into like worrying about it, because I don't think that there's really any way that I can improve it, you know? And I don't think, because here's the other thing, it refers back to last week, availability. I could have 100,000 followers and it doesn't change how much product I'm able to put out into the world. If I could scale with like the growth that I received if my social media grew, then yeah, it would have precedence, like a Montana Knife Company type of a situation. They're selling 3,000 knives a month because they have their logistics in place to be able to do that. So as they're growing, and as Josh Smith is on Fox News, or this X celebrity is getting their shit and promoting it, every customer that gets driven to them is able to get a knife if they really want to, because their drops last 10 minutes before they sell out. So anybody can get one if they want one. But we're not at that place. So it's like, does it really matter? No. My follower number and my my engagement can grow as my ability to sell knives more often also grows. You know, the day comes where I have a product that doesn't sell, then I'm worried. But until that day comes, then like, you know, who cares?
Yeah, it's a good outlook on it for sure. I think Facebook, like you said, Facebook is real good. It's a good core group of people on there. I feel like anybody that's following Facebook groups is going to be a little bit more invested in spending time and actually engaging on there than Instagram, where it's just so easy to just join it and follow. So,
totally, man. Well, what are you up to? As we're wrapping up, it's been 55 minutes.
Yeah.
You have 4 days left in this week and then 5 full days of work left. So you have 9.5 days to wrap up everything that you're wrapping up. You have your show side frames are done. You're doing op 2 on your lock side frames. Your pocket clips op 1 are done. You still have to blank them out and do op 2. And you have to finish your blades. What's your next one? Are all your lock bars done, or did you just make one lock bar?
I made one lock bar. So I do want to talk to you about this a little bit. So I made one lock bar. It's 40 thou thick. Well, it's 50 thou thick. It's 40 thou thick at the relief. And then it ends up being like around 100 or so, maybe a little bit 70 or so in the back.
Okay.
And so it snaps in it snaps in that dovetail, and everything fit perfect. It's bent nice, locates real snug. But because this is only 50 thou thick, the pocket that I could make in the frame, I could only go 50 thou thick before it breaks through into the external features, without making this stuff too thick. I'm concerned right now that I'm not going to have enough over travel from the lock bar to get the detent ball out of the way without binding the blade, unless I flatten the detent ball to like 10 thou proud of the lock face, which is enough engagement. The only issue is is it going to be enough to keep the lock or to keep the blade from bouncing back out of detent? So, because when you have a 30 thou of that ball catching, even if it bounces back 20 thou, it's going to still catch it and close. I'm concerned flattening the ball that much that it's going to just bounce back out. So I'm thinking I might actually just thin this out maybe to 40, and then I'll have an extra 10, but I think it might be too thin. So
here's what you do. This is the move. It's going to take a little bit of lackluster process as far as repeatability goes, but what I have done, because you don't have like a surface grinder on hand and you don't have like a surface grinding attachment, I have bolted that lock bar down to a plate, like any kind of a fixture plate. And then I put a piece of double-sided tape down, and I put like a 20 thousandths phosphor bronze washer underneath the lock bar on the double-sided tape. And I press it down so that part of the lock bar is gripping the double-sided tape, and then the washer is lifting that up. And then what you can actually do is you can take a pass. I'll even do this Bridgeport style in the machine, just hand jogging. With that lock bar raised up 20 thousandths, just machine the backside of the lock bar on an angle, 10 thousandths. So you still have, what did you say, 50 thousandths of lock bar width? So you'll still have 40 thousandths on an angle, but just in the area where it needs to over travel for the ball to ride, it has space behind it. A lot of guys do that on their surface grinding attachments, like for the grinder. They'll do that same thing. Put the frame on double-sided tape, put a PB washer underneath one end, and then just pull it back and forth and let the grinder. You could even do it manually on the grinder if you really wanted to, or whatever. I
can just do it in the mill too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just surface that taper in the mill.
Yep.
If I
you could just. Because you're gonna have it set up. You're gonna have it set up for op 2 anyways.
Yeah. So I did op 2. I did the bottom on op 1, the dovetail and all that stuff, and then I drop it down in the soft jaws, hold the entire lock bar, and then relieve off all this top stuff.
So the end will be unsupported in op 2 because you're going to cut a taper on the backside,
but it'll be grouting completely.
And it's the inside of the, nobody's going to see, especially if you're blasting the insert. Nobody's going to see if your surface finish is a little bit wonky there, like if it chatters or something. Nobody's going to notice that. But yeah, you could just surface a relief, whatever it is, like an inch, or whatever the case may be. That's probably the route that I would go.
So if I take it down to 40 thou, I have 10 thou gap between the blade and the frame. And then if I relieve the back of this, that gives me 20 thou total gap with this completely pressed down to the frame, which is how much the ball sticks out anyways. So as long as I just maybe flat top a few thou so it doesn't bind the blade. I
Yep.
just don't want. I'm not a huge fan of flattened balls, but I don't want it to be tight. Binding this
No.
and crushing the whole thing as it's closing. So
If you can find a way to flatten the ball parallel to the frame or parallel to the blade to make sure that like the flattened ball doesn't mean that just one half of the flattened ball is dragging. Like that's the biggest issue for me is like finding a way to make sure that that flattened surface is parallel to the blade. So you just have a smooth open and closing. Like that is something I've never mastered. Like obviously some people will grip a diamond disc in an arbor in their Bridgeport and then just hold your liner flat and then come down so that you're certain that the liner's flat, the disc is square to the arbor, so you know that you're within as flat as you can get, and then come down. And actually, what's nice about that way is you can come down, touch off the disc on the top of the ball, zero your quill, scale or your DRO, and then come down to a known number. If you want to take 5 thousandths off the top of the ball, you know exactly how much you're removing when you're doing that. So,
yeah, that's a good idea. I'm trying to figure out what I need to do next. So obviously I'm going to finish all the rest of the lock frames. So then all the frames are done. So the main thing right now is that I've got 3 vices in here. They're all single stations, but I have one that's all Talon stuff because everything first stop is all in the Talons. And then I've got 2 vices with soft jaws, but I already had the soft jaws cut for the outside of the slab frames. So I wanted to finish those so I didn't have to cut those jaws again.
Correct.
Because you know how it goes. It doesn't matter how good you make the jaws and how good the attachment system is. Like, it always kind of sucks putting jaws back in. So
I don't even. I just redress them.
Yeah, I just try and redress them. But because there's so much geometry in these things, I have relief and there's a bunch of stuff in there. So I'm like, I don't want to cut these things again. I'm just going to hammer these things out, keep working on something else until they're done. So I'm going to finish the lock frames, and then next I'm thinking either I want to finish the lock bars before I do the blades, because then I can put lock bars in all the frames and I can fit the blades to each frame. I'm hoping I don't have to do like a fit to each one and I can just machine them and be done, because everything should be pretty consistent. But I want to finish lock frames and lock bars before I do blades. Because then I can actually test assemble some stuff. Because if I overcut the blades and then I haven't cut these yet, I have to make these longer, but then these aren't going to fit into the pocket that's in the frame.
Right.
So I think I need to constrain all of this lock stuff first and then do the blades last.
I would think that I would want to like finish a blade first to test assemble, but I also see the merits in what you're saying is like, get everything fit perfectly, do blades last so that you can manipulate the blade geometry. That's the only thing. That's your constant. Rather than like some blades are one way, some lock bars are shorter. It's like, no, all the lock bars are fitted into the frames. All the lock bars are the same length. You're going to cut a theoretical lock face on your blade, and then if it's too short, make the adjustment, and then the blade is the only place that you're tweaking. Everything else stays the same. I think that makes sense.
So, and then I've got to do
clips. I feel like would be the last thing I would fuck with. It's like superficial, doesn't have anything to do with function, and like call that the last thing you're going to finish.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, part of me keeps like I said, it's like with the pocket clips, I'm like, I should do those last, but then I'm like, you know what? I have the stock, it's already cut. This is going to be a couple hours where I saw cut all the other frame shit. I'm just going to run these things. Part of me is kind of thinking like, all right, well, I can set up one set of soft jaws. Then I have a blank vise where I can do all the blade stuff, and then I have another vise for whatever else.
Sure.
So I could kind of have everything set up, and then I could just run what I need. I'd rather run. The thing that I'm concerned with is that if I just go straight to blades, like finish the frames and then go straight to blades, that I'm going to spend the next, like to the last day, just working on blades and then not have any pocket clips. But I could spend probably a couple hours and just knock out all the pocket clips, and those are done. And then I'll use the remaining time to just make as many blades as possible. At least that way I'll have enough parts to assemble something. I'm just hoping that I don't hit a dead end where I'm missing an entire part completely versus just being short on enough to make all 15.
I think you need to
but I need to make the blades.
Sit down and you need to make a little schedule. You need to take your day by day. Here are the things based on the amount of time left. Here's what I need to do each day in order to achieve my goal, regardless of cycle time. Just This day I can dedicate these 2 days to lock bars, these 2 days to blades, these 2 days to this. And then I still have 3 days left at the end. And then you pick a hard stop date, which is like, if I'm not on schedule on Tuesday, like give yourself the next 5 days. Here's what I need to do. This is the schedule that should work. If I'm not still on this schedule by Tuesday, I need to stop what I'm doing and readjust what I need to do to get 5 knives done for the show. Like whether it's because I haven't started blades or whatever. It's like, if this means I have to go back and set up and recut jaws so that I can do this or that, whatever. Because now it's about, I'm within 4 days or 3 days of my goal. And if I don't peel off to finish what I need to for these knives, I'm not going to bring anything, and just give yourself that hard stop. And if you get there, you need to be real with yourself. Like not another second can be given to anything but the adjusted schedule. Not an extra half a day because I think I can catch up. No, just okay, peeling off, moving on to the next thing so that you have what you need. The plane ticket's paid for, the shit's booked. Like,
I gotta
go. Gotta have a hard
bring
stop.
some shit.
Because you will, one day at a time, if you don't set yourself those constraints, the scheduling constraints, you're going to work up to the last second and not have a plan. And that's where I'm at right now, which is when I talked to Logan last weekend, I laid it all out. I'm like, this, and I need to be here by the time you get here, or else you being here is going to stop me from being able to do what I need to do. And then I just worked my ass off to make sure that happened. But if it got to Friday and I didn't have it done, I'm reevaluating my expectations for what my plan is. And you just have to be able to do that. But you won't do it if you don't sit down now and plan out the next 9 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Brittany and I were out here and we wrote down, she's like, all right, well, how long is it going to take you to do the lock frames, slab frames, pocket clips? And we kind of broke it down. All right, it's going to take me X amount of days to do this, X amount of days to do this. And we wrote out all that stuff, kind of had some dates, but I had to shuffle some stuff around because I'm like, if I run these first, it's going to probably not work out when I run these ones because I won't have any more adjustment or something. So we have that list of all that stuff and like an estimated time for each part. Now I brought it back inside last night so we can kind of reevaluate where I'm at on each part and then rewrite that list. So definitely going to do that today for sure.
I think that's smart, man. I think that is for your mental well-being, like your anxiety that you'll inherently develop over the next 9 days. Like you need to look at that. I look at it every day now, which is like, what do I have to get done today to stay on schedule? Okay, well, which machine needs priority? You know, what do I have to get to? How late am I working? What is my hard deadline of like, I'm not going inside tonight until this is done. And just be realistic with like what those things have to be. And if you get ahead of schedule, great. If you fall behind, you're up a little earlier tomorrow. You're out here a little later the next day. You know, that is what like we're talking about earlier, where like you get to a point where you fucked enough stuff up in a row and you just need to leave and check yourself out. Well, that's where I was 2 days ago, but I still worked until midnight because I said to my wife, I didn't have the ability to walk away because I'm on deadline. I couldn't. I needed to. My brain, everything in my head was like, walk away from the shop. You're done for the day. You're fucking shit up left and right. But like I had to stay out here and push through it so that I could hit the ground running the next day. Because if I would have signed off, then I would have spent half of the next day trying to get my head back into the game for the shit that I couldn't figure out the day before. And I would have been another half a day behind. It's like, you got to have these hard stops of like, this has to get done today, every day through your deadline. It just is a reality of what we're doing right now.
Totally. So you got, you have to do any heat treating or anything? All your stuff, you're already hard milled on everything.
My blades are all hardened. They're all surface ground. They're all hard milled. They're ready to be assembled, have tabs ground off and locks and detents done.
Nice. But you got to grind primaries and stuff still. Sharpened.
That is my next week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is grind primaries, locks, detents, grind primaries, grind swedges, apply finishes, sharpen. So I have 3 titanium subliners that are all titanium everything. I have 2 fat carbon frames that are going to require nothing. And then I have my auction knife, which that blade has to get ground, polished, etched. The dark tie frames have to be polished and heat anodized. I mean, that one's going to take the most time. Thankfully, the other ones are just belt satin grinds, so no hand rubbing. And the frames are either blasted and tumbled and sasha'd or nothing. The carbon fiber stuff is just done. So I do have to machine the second operation of all my handles, but I can't do that until I have the subliner inserts finished so that I can assemble them into the frames for support, structural support, so that then I can surface the top side. Otherwise, it's too thin without that internal support. I feel like it would break or crack. So, yeah, that's my goal today is go inside, get this package from UPS, get these subliner inserts made today, Op 1, Op 2, tomorrow, assemble them and surface Op 2 of all the frames, and then begin assembly. And I can also resume Mac machining now that I have dedicated both machines to the show stuff for the last like 2 days or 3 days. I'm caught up with it now, and I can resume finishing my Mac stuff for also. That's the other thing. I have, all these Mac knives to deliver right around the time that the show is. So like I'm going to be pushing through that stuff, keeping that running while I'm finishing everything that I'm doing. So
nice. Is any of that stuff going to be at the show? None of the Mac stuff is needed for the show, right?
No. Matt Christensen will have some Mac outliers that he finished. I'm assuming the Keenison guys are going to have some Mac strays. I gave them a batch last month. They didn't end up taking any to the gathering last week. So I'm assuming they'll be bringing some of their stuff. And I don't think any other Mac guys are going to be there. Yeah, nothing from American, nothing from Efros, nothing from CMF. So yeah, there'll be some there. But no, not everything I delivered last month was what they would need for this month. Anything I'm delivering this month they'll be releasing in October. Cool. I'm good there. It's just more about like trying to keep on a schedule. Like I was for the longest time getting them their stuff the very beginning of each month, and then in July because of the Portland show prep, I switched to the 15th was my deadline for delivery. I'm considering taking the stuff that's supposed to be done the 15th and like just holding on to it or giving myself a little bit of leeway to send that to them on the 1st of October and then just resuming, first of the month deliveries. I think that I got to talk to them and make sure they're okay with that. Like, hey, can we delay your batch by 2 weeks? More or less skipping September to resume the schedule in October for, the first of the month going forward. I don't think anybody's going to have an issue with that. It's more about how does my budget handle that income getting pushed out another 2 or 3 weeks? Because I have the show income coming in around that time, not a big deal for me. So those are just things to think about.
Nice. Cool. Sounds like it's going to be a busy week for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be. We're going to be grinding. I'm sure you and me are going to be venting to each other every day about just like shitting our pants about are we going to get it done? And I just hope that like in 10 days we can all meet up in Indianapolis and crack a beer and just like dap each other up. Be like just stoked to be there, and like nobody's like trying to assemble knives in the hotel room or any of that shit. Which I mean, it happens, but we'll see.
I'm gonna probably bring this. I'm gonna probably bring this Pelican I borrowed from my buddy PJ that's got all the Wicked Edge stuff in it.
Smart man.
I got all this shit. He's like, yeah.
I mean, I'm bringing everything in my truck. Anything that any of you guys could need, I'm gonna have.
Nice.
Honestly, I'm bringing my sharpener with a bunch of belts.
Right.
Like in the off chance that like somebody needs to like plug that fucker into the hotel room and we're sharpening knives in the fucking hotel room, we'll do it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure.
I'm not pulling any punches. This is one of like 2 shows a year that I can drive to. I'm fucking bringing the kitchen sink so that everybody's hooked up and ready to go.
You might as well. Yeah, it's cool.
I mean, honestly, dude, if you get to that point where it's Friday and sharpening is all you have left and you're like, I want to enjoy this time with my family, we'll sharpen the knives in the hotel room on fucking Saturday night. I'll have the shit. So
nice. Cool. Yeah, if anybody from Wicked Edge or anybody's listening, sponsor the podcast.
Yeah, we need a little bit of sponsor money. We'll shout you out. But
there we go.
Cool, man. Hour and 15.
Cool,
we grounded out for the 6th week in a row. I'm loving doing this. It's giving me new perspective. It's introducing me to new people that are touching base with me about how our conversations are impacting their mental well-being or their approach to how they're doing knives or shows. Mm-hmm. It's been awesome. Thank you again for pushing me to do it. And thank you to everybody for listening. I mean, again, this is just 2 dudes having a candid conversation about shit that goes between their ears during their workday as one-man shops, machinists, and knife makers. So thank you for everybody for your attention, and I hope that you continue to engage with us. This has been great.
Cool, man. Thanks, dude.
No problem, man. Have you a good day. I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Later.
Peace.